I stood in that cramped plasma center, my stomach growling from 3 days without a proper meal when the nurse's face went white as she stared at my blood sample. "Mr. Hale," she whispered, backing away from the microscope. "I need to get the director. Now." That was the moment my life split into 2 parts. Before I knew what was flowing through my veins, and after. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, harsh and unforgiving, making everything look cheaper than it already was. My name is Marcus Hale, and 6 months ago, I owned a demolition company worth $8 million. I had crews across 3 states, government contracts, and a wife who loved telling her book club friends about our vacation home in Aspen. But standing there in that plasma center on Elmwood Avenue, watching a 20-something nurse look at my blood like she'd discovered alien life, I was just another broke, middle-aged man trying to scrape together $50. "Sir, please don't move," the nurse said, and I noticed her hands were trembling as she picked up the desk phone. Her name tag read Keeley, and she'd been nothing but kind to me since I'd walked in, embarrassed and desperate, filling out forms that asked questions like, "When did you last eat a full meal?" I'd lied on that one. 3 days sounded better than 5. "Is something wrong with my blood?" I asked, and my voice cracked because suddenly I was thinking about diseases, about cancer, about all the ways a man's body can betray him when he's already lost everything else. "Am I sick?" "No, Mr. Hale, you're not sick," Keeley said. But she was already dialing, her fingers fumbling with the numbers. "It's just that your blood is." She stopped herself, glanced at me, then spoke quickly into the phone. "Dr. Brennan, you need to come to Station 3 immediately." "Yes, right now. I have a donor with Artinol blood." I didn't know what renol meant, but the way she said it, like she was announcing she'd found the Holy Grail in a plastic collection bag, made my chest tighten. Around us, other donors sat in worn recliners, scrolling through their phones, or staring at the mounted TV playing some morning talk show. None of them knew that the biggest loser in the room was about to discover he'd been carrying liquid gold in his veins for 48 years. "Key, what's Rachel?" I asked, but she was already hanging up, already pulling out a second collection kit with movements that had gone from routine to reverent. "Mr. Hale, Rachel, blood is the rarest blood type in the world. Only 43 people on Earth have been documented with it. Your blood can save people who would die without it. People who have no other matches, no other hope. 43 people out of 8 billion. I looked down at my arm, where the needle sat taped against my skin, at the thin tube carrying dark red blood into a medical bag, and tried to understand how Marcus Hale, the man whose wife had spit in his face, and called him worthless 2 weeks ago, could suddenly be one of the rarest human beings alive. The door burst open, and a tall, thin man in a white coat rushed in. Dr. Brennan, according to his badge, and he looked at me the way archaeologists must look at undiscovered pyramids. "Mr. Hale, I'm Dr. Brennan, the medical director here." "Keeley, you're certain?" I ran it 3 times. "Doctor, it's null." He pulled up a chair right next to my recliner, close enough that I could smell his coffee breath, and his eyes were bright with an excitement that seemed out of place in this depressing donation center where people sold pieces of themselves to make rent. "Mr. Hale, I need to ask you some questions. Has anyone in your family ever mentioned having rare blood? Any unusual medical histories?" "My mother died when I was 2, I said. "Car accident." "My father never mentioned anything about blood types. He's just a retired railroad engineer, lives in Salem." "We need to run a full panel immediately," Dr. Brennan said. But then his phone buzzed, and when he looked at the screen, his expression changed. "That's impossible. How could they know already?" "Know what?" I asked. But he was standing, pacing now, talking rapidly to someone on the phone in medical terms. I didn't understand. All I caught were fragments. "Yes, confirmed or null. And he's here now, and I understand the urgency." I thought about walking out, taking my $50, and leaving before whatever this was got more complicated. But then I thought about my son, Noah, trying to finish college while his mother told him daily what a disappointment his father had become. I thought about my brother Evan, pretending he didn't mind me eating his food and using his electricity. I thought about my father, Robert Hale, who'd worked his whole life with his hands and was now offering me his Social Security money because his son had lost everything. "Mr. Hale," Dr. Brennan said, ending his call, "there's someone coming to speak with you. Someone who's going to make you an offer that will change your life." "I don't understand any of this," I said, and I hated how small my voice sounded. How defeated. This morning, I woke up on my brother's couch with $38 to my name. I came here to sell plasma so I could buy gas and ramen noodles. Now, you're telling me my blood is special? Not just special, Mr. Hale. Your blood is precious. And right now, there's a man dying in Portofino who needs what you have. His family is already sending a representative. She'll be here in 10 minutes. Portofino. I knew it was in Europe. Knew it was where rich people kept yachts and gambled away fortunes. It was the kind of place Sophie had always dreamed of visiting, back when she thought I could give her that life. The needle in my arm suddenly felt heavier, more significant, as if it was drawing out something more than just blood. "There's more," Dr. Brennan said, and something in his tone made me focus on his face. "When we identified your ARTL status, our system automatically ran a genetic panel. It's protocol for rare blood types. Mr. Hale, we found something in your DNA that doesn't match your stated family history." "What do you mean?" "I mean that genetically you show markers consistent with a very specific European lineage. A family that's been extensively documented due to their unique blood characteristics." Before I could ask what he meant, the door opened again, and a woman walked in wearing a suit that probably cost more than my truck had been worth before the bank took it. She was maybe 40, with dark hair pulled back and eyes that assessed me like I was a business transaction. "Mr. Hale, my name is Lucia Bellini. I represent the Bellini family of Portofino. We need to discuss your blood, your family history, and an offer that's going to sound impossible, but I assure you is very real." And that's when my story really began. Not when I lost my company or when my wife left or when I hit rock bottom. It began the moment I learned that sometimes what saves you has been inside you all along, waiting for you to become desperate enough to discover it. 6 months earlier, I'd been Marcus Hale, owner of Hale Demolition Services with 14 crews working across 3 states. I had a house with a pool, a wife who loved hosting dinner parties, and my son Noah in his 2nd year at State College. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. The morning everything started falling apart. I was standing on the Riverside Plaza site, coffee in one hand, plans in the other. The old Harrington's department store had been empty for 12 years, a 4-story brick beast that needed to come down so the city could build their new shopping complex. It was a $20 million project, and my company had won the bid against 3 larger firms. "Marcus, I've triple-checked everything," my project manager, Denny Holbrook, had said, waving the permit paperwork like a flag. Denny had been with me 8 years. Knew demolition like some people know scripture. City signed off on all the utility shut-offs, gas, electric, water. Everything's been disconnected and capped. I trusted Denny. That was my first mistake. My second was not walking the basement myself one more time. My third was being too proud of landing the biggest contract in my company's history to ask the questions that might have saved everything. The demolition was textbook perfect until it wasn't. The charges fired in sequence. The building came down exactly as planned, folding in on itself like a house of cards. But when the dust started clearing, we heard the hissing. Then came the smell of natural gas, sharp and wrong. "Everyone back," I screamed, and my crew scattered. The gas main we'd clipped wasn't on any city blueprint. It had been installed in 1962 by a company that no longer existed, feeding a part of the old downtown. That had been redeveloped 3 times since. Nobody knew it was there because nobody alive remembered it being put in. Thank God nobody got hurt. The fire department evacuated 6 blocks. The gas company had to do emergency shut-offs across half the business district. The 11 o'clock news led with aerial footage of my disaster. The reporter saying words like negligence and catastrophic oversight, while my company logo showed clear as day on every hard hat. The lawsuit started the next week. The city wanted $10 million in damages. The gas company wanted $5 million. Every business that lost a day of revenue wanted the compensation. My insurance company sent a team of lawyers who spent 3 days going through our paperwork before delivering their verdict in my own conference room. The policy clearly states that all permits must be verified independently, the lead attorney had said, sliding papers across the table. Your signature is on documents stating all underground utilities were mapped and cleared. Since that wasn't true, we're denying coverage. But the city gave us the wrong information. I said, my voice rising. Their blueprints were wrong. Then you should have verified independently. It's in your contract, Mr. Hale. Page 47, subsection 12. Within 4 months, everything was gone. The company I'd built over 20 years dissolved. The house I'd bought when Noah was born foreclosed. The trucks, the equipment, all auctioned off to pay a fraction of what I owed. My business accounts frozen, my credit destroyed. Sophie lasted exactly 2 weeks after the foreclosure notice arrived. I need to stay with my sister Patricia for a while. She'd announced one morning, already dressed, her suitcases by the door. Patricia pulled up in her Mercedes. Didn't even come inside. I need time to think about us, Marcus. She'd announced one morning, already dressed, her suitcases by the door. Patricia pulled up in her Mercedes. Didn't even come inside. I need time to think about us, Marcus. She looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, like I was something stuck to her shoe. I didn't marry a loser, Marcus. You're 48 years old, and you're about to be homeless. You can't even afford to take me to dinner anymore. She picked up her jewelry box, the one I'd bought her for our 15th anniversary. You know what you are now? You're just another broke, middle-aged failure who couldn't hack it. 22 years, Sophie. We've been married 22 years, and for 21 of them, you were successful. She walked to the door, then turned back. My lawyer will send papers. Don't contest it, Marcus. Just let me go with whatever dignity you have left. After she left, I sat in our empty house, surrounded by boxes of things I couldn't afford to store, and called my brother Evan. Come stay with me, he said immediately. The basement's not much, but it's warm and dry. Evan ran a small HVAC repair business. Did well enough to support his family, but not well enough that having his failure of an older brother sleeping in his basement wasn't a burden. His wife, Denise, tried to be kind, but I could see the strain in her eyes when she'd set an extra plate at dinner. My father, Robert Hale, called every few days from Salem. Son, I've got about $12,000 in savings, he'd offer, his voice gruff with the emotion he'd never been good at expressing. It's yours if you need it. Dad, you're 73 and living on Social Security. I'm not taking your money. You're my boy, Marcus. Let me help. I'll figure it out, Dad. I always have. But I hadn't figured it out. By January, I was down to my last $40 eating ramen twice a day. Applying for jobs I was either overqualified for or too old to get. The construction foreman position in Davenport was my last real shot, but I needed gas money to get there for the interview. That's when I saw the sign outside the BioLife Plasma Center. New donors, $50 first visit. $50 for something my body made for free. It seemed like a perfect metaphor for how far I'd fallen. From signing million-dollar contracts to selling my blood for grocery money. From being Marcus Hale, a successful businessman, to being just another desperate man with nothing left to sell but himself. By January, I was down to my last $40. The basement at Evan's house had become my whole world. A pull-out couch with a broken spring that dug into my back. A card table where I ate my meals and a small window that showed just enough sky to remind me there was still a world outside. Every morning I'd wake up to the sound of Evan's kids getting ready for school overhead, their footsteps a reminder of the normal life happening above me while I hid below like something shameful. Noah had called the night before, trying to sound casual, but I could hear the worry bleeding through his forced cheerfulness. Dad, I've been thinking. I can take a semester off, get a job. There's a construction company here that's hiring. Absolutely not. I told him, gripping the phone hard enough to make my knuckles white. You're 3 semesters from graduating. You stay in school. But Dad, I heard Mom talking to Aunt Patricia. She said you're living in Uncle Evan's basement, that you're eating ramen every day, that you don't even have money for gas. The betrayal of Sophie discussing my situation like gossip stung worse than hunger. Your mother doesn't know everything about my situation, Noah. I'm fine. I have an interview next week in Davenport. Big commercial project. They need a foreman with experience. Dad, just let me help. I can send you something from my work-study money. Noah, stop. I'm your father. I take care of you, not the other way around. Focus on your studies. Promise me. Okay, Dad. I promise. After hanging up, I'd stared at the ceiling until 3 o'clock in the morning, calculating and recalculating. $40 in my wallet. The Davenport interview was in 3 days, 90 miles away. Gas would cost at least $30. That left $10 for food for the rest of the week. The math of poverty was simple and cruel. The next morning, Evan left early for a job. Denise was getting the kids ready for school, and I could hear her on the phone with her mother. No, Mom. He's trying. He applies for jobs every day, but who's going to hire a 48-year-old former owner for entry-level work? They know he'll leave the second something better comes up. I waited until they were all gone before going upstairs. The pantry had a few cans of soup I wouldn't touch. That was their food, not mine. The ramen I'd bought last week was down to 2 packages. I mixed one with hot water, ate it standing at the sink, and tried not to think about the steaks I used to grill on weekends. That's when I saw the sign on my walk to the library where I used free Wi-Fi to apply for jobs. BioLife Plasma Center, new donors, $50 first visit. I stood outside for 10 minutes watching people go in and out. Some looked like college students, probably doing it for beer money. Others looked like me, middle-aged, tired, carrying that particular weight of failure in their shoulders. $50 meant gas to Davenport. It meant maybe getting a real meal before the interview so I wouldn't look as desperate as I was. It meant buying a few more days to pretend I could climb out of this hole. I walked in at 8 a.m. on that Tuesday, filled out the paperwork with hands that shook slightly. The questions were invasive, humiliating. Have you eaten today? No. Are you currently employed? No. Is this donation for personal financial need? Yes. The waiting room smelled like disinfectant and defeat. A woman across from me was reading a romance novel, trying to look like she was here by choice. A young guy in construction boots was asleep in his chair, probably between shifts. We were all pretending this was normal, that selling pieces of ourselves was just another Tuesday morning errand. Marcus Hale. A nurse called my name. Keely, according to her name tag, she was maybe 25. Pretty in that fresh-faced way that made me feel every one of my 48 years. First time? Yeah. Never thought I'd be here. She led me to a recliner, started preparing the needle. No shame in it, Mr. Hale. You're helping save lives. Plus, everybody needs a little help sometimes. Some more than others, I said, watching her tap my arm to find a vein. You'd be surprised. Last week, we had a lawyer in here month before a doctor. Hard times don't discriminate. The needle went in smooth, and I watched my blood flow through the tube into the collection bag. Dark red, almost purple in the harsh fluorescent light. My father had donated blood regularly when I was a kid, used to take me along to the Red Cross drives at the VFW. It's what decent people do, he'd say, but he was donating to help others. I was doing it for $50. Your blood looks really healthy, Keely said, checking the flow. Good color, good consistency. Then she frowned, leaned closer to the collection bag. That's strange. What's strange? She pulled a small vial from the line, held it up to the light. I need to run a quick test. Standard procedure. Nothing to worry about. She took the vial to a machine in the corner, put a drop on a slide, looked through a microscope. I watched her body language change, a straightening of the spine, a quick intake of breath. She looked again, then a third time, then backed away from the microscope like it had shown her something impossible. Mr. Hale, she whispered, turning to face me with eyes wide. I need to get the director right now. Please don't move. Don't disconnect anything. This is important. Am I sick? Is something wrong? No, sir. Nothing's wrong. Everything's about to be very right. Mr. Hale, I need you to stay very still. Keely said, her voice different now. Urgent, professional, like she just discovered something that changed all the rules. I'm getting Dr. Brennan immediately. Is something wrong? Am I sick? The questions came out sharp because suddenly every worst-case scenario was flooding my mind. Cancer, HIV, some rare disease that would finish what losing everything had started. No, sir, just please don't leave. She practically ran to the door, leaving me alone with the steady pump of the machine drawing my blood. Around me, other donors scrolled through their phones, oblivious to whatever drama was unfolding in my recliner. The TV droned on about mortgage rates, and I almost laughed at the irony. Dr. Brennan arrived within minutes, a tall, thin man who looked at my blood sample, then at his computer screen, then back at the sample like he was solving an equation that shouldn't exist. Mr. Hale, we need to run a comprehensive panel immediately. I can't afford any tests. No charge. This is extraordinary. He pulled up a chair, sitting close enough that I could see the excitement he was trying to contain. Your blood type is R0. We call it golden blood. Only 43 people on Earth have been documented with this type. I stared at him trying to process words that sounded like science fiction. Is that bad? Bad? Mr. Hale, your blood can save anyone with rare blood types within the RH system. It's universal for people who otherwise have no donors. You're literally 1 in 200 million. His phone buzzed. He answered, speaking rapidly to someone, his eyes never leaving me. Yes, confirmed Arnold. He's here now. I understand the urgency. He hung up immediately, dialing another number. We've just received an urgent request. There's a situation developing. What kind of situation? Before he could answer, the door burst open. A woman in an expensive suit walked in like she owned the building. Everything about her screamed, money, from her Italian leather shoes to the Hermes bag she carried like a weapon. Dr. Brennan, Miss Bellini, this is Mr. Hale. She turned to me and I saw desperation beneath her professional composure. Mr. Hale, my name is Lucia Bellini. I represent the Bellini family of Portofino. Enzo Bellini is dying. He needs a transfusion within 12 hours. And you're the only match we've found in North America. Portofino? That's in Europe. The family jet is waiting at the executive airport. Mr. Hale, the family are prepared to offer $2 million for your immediate cooperation. $2 million. The number hit me like a physical blow. I looked at my arm at the needle drawing out blood I'd been about to sell for $50. For my blood, for saving Enzo's life. But we need to leave now. Every minute matters. This is insane. This morning, I woke up broke in my brother's basement. Now you're telling me someone will pay $2 million for my blood? Mr. Hale, she said, sitting down across from me, her voice softening slightly. Enzo is one of the wealthiest men in Italy. His shipping empire employs 30,000 people. He has children, grandchildren. He's been searching for a compatible donor for 3 years. You're not just blood to him. You're hope. I thought about Noah trying to finish college. About my father too proud to let me see him worry. About Evan and Denise pretending it wasn't a burden to feed me. $2 million would change everything. But something wasn't adding up. Why the urgency if he's been searching for 3 years? He had an incident yesterday. Internal bleeding from a condition that's been managed for years. He needs surgery, but without compatible blood for transfusion. The surgery will kill him. We have maybe 10 hours to get you there. What about the DNA test? I asked Dr. Brennan, remembering Keeley had mentioned something about running additional tests. He hesitated, glancing at Miss Bellini. That can wait. No, she interrupted, surprising me. Tell him. He deserves to know before he decides. Dr. Brennan pulled up something on his tablet, showing me a complex chart that might as well have been hieroglyphics. When we identified your renal status, we ran a comprehensive genetic panel. It's standard protocol for rare blood types. But we found something else, which is you have genetic markers that indicate, Mr. Hale, did your mother ever mention anything unusual about your birth? My mother died when I was 2. Car accident. Why? And your father never remarried? No. What does this have to do with my blood? Miss Bellini stepped forward. Mr. Hale, the genetic markers Dr. Brennan found match a very specific lineage. The Bellini family has been searching for blood relatives for 30 years. Enzo had a younger brother, Vittorio, who disappeared in 1973. My mouth went dry. So Vittorio Bellini came to America and changed his name to Robert Hale. Mr. Hale, the man you're being asked to save, Enzo Bellini, is your father's brother, your uncle. The room started spinning. That's impossible. My father was born in Salem. His parents were farmers. Your father was born Vittorio Bellini in Genoa. He fled Italy after a family dispute over inheritance. He created an entirely new identity. She pulled out an old photograph yellowed at the edges. 2 young men standing by a yacht, champagne glasses raised, smiling at something beyond the camera. One was clearly a younger version of the man in the medical files she'd shown me. The other made my heart stop. Dad. The word came out as a whisper. It was him. My father, Robert Hale, maybe 25 years old, wearing clothes I'd never seen him able to afford, standing next to a yacht bigger than my brother's house. Your father walked away from one of Europe's largest shipping fortunes, Ms. Bellini said gently. I went to the funeral. Your mother was 8 months pregnant, completely broken. When I tried to explain about the company, she screamed at me to get out. Said she never wanted to hear about Vittorio's failed dreams again. She moved away right after you were born. I hired private investigators, but Dorothy covered her tracks well. He walked to a filing cabinet and pulled out folder after folder. 6 months after Vittorio died, everything changed. The state announced a new technology corridor initiative. Suddenly, our worthless swampland was prime real estate. The permits were approved overnight, but I couldn't find you or your mother to tell you. So, you developed it alone? I developed it for both of us. Every contract, every lease, every decision, I asked myself what Vittorio would want. I put his 50% in a trust, collecting rent, accumulating interest, waiting for the day I could find his son. Lucia showed me lease agreements, bank statements, 30 years of meticulous records. The numbers were staggering. 823 million, Lucia said. That's your father's share as of today, but Marcus, there's something more important than the money. She pulled out a specific lease agreement, and my blood froze. Enzo Bellini's signature stared back at me. Bellini Industries has been our anchor tenant for 15 years. Lot 47, the crown jewel of the corridor. His entire operation runs from that building. The lease comes up for renewal next month. You're telling me Enzo Bellini rents from us? From you now. And there's a morality clause I insisted on in every lease. Any tenant convicted of fraud, theft, or unethical business practices can be evicted with 30 days' notice. Your father wanted honest businesses on our land. I thought about Sophie's text, about being nobody, about my son crying on the phone, about my brother offering money he didn't have. About 3 months of delivering pizzas while Enzo Bellini sat in his office on my father's land, destroying lives for sport. Lucia, I said, my voice steady for the first time in months. I think it's time Enzo Bellini met his new landlord. Lucia smiled, and for the first time in 6 months, I felt something I'd forgotten existed. Hope. Not just for money or revenge, but for justice. The man who'd crushed me because he was about to learn that karma sometimes comes with a 30-day eviction notice. 6 months ago, I had it all figured out. 23 years at Hale Demolition had taken me from warehouse coordinator to senior logistics manager, and I was proud of every rung I'd climbed on that ladder. My corner office overlooked the city skyline, and my team of 42 people respected me enough to name me Manager of the Year 3 times running. The divorce from Sophie had been final for 8 years, and honestly, I was doing better without her. My kids had flourished once the constant fighting stopped. Noah was in his final year at State University's nursing program, pulling straight A's and volunteering at Children's Hospital on weekends. Evan had just made partner at McKenna and Associates, the youngest in the firm's history at 31. We had Sunday dinners together twice a month at my house in Binmar. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. "Dad, you need to start dating again," Noah would say, passing the mashed potatoes. "You're only 48. That's young these days." "I'm focused on my work, sweetheart. Besides, after your mother, I think I've had enough excitement for one lifetime." Evan would laugh. "Mom was definitely exciting. Remember when she tried to convince us to invest in that pyramid scheme? We could joke about it now, about Sophie's constant need for more money, more status, more everything. She'd left me for a real estate developer who went bankrupt within 2 years. Last I'd heard, she was working as a receptionist at a dental office. Then came the company gala in June. Hale Demolition always went overboard for the annual celebration, renting out the Four Seasons ballroom, bringing in celebrity chefs, making everyone feel like royalty for one night. I was standing with my team, actually enjoying myself, when Enzo Bellini himself approached with a woman on his arm. "Marcus," Enzo boomed in that voice that commanded boardrooms. "I want you to meet my fiancé properly." The woman turned and my blood turned to ice. Sophie stood there in a designer gown that probably cost more than I made in a month. Diamonds dripping from her ears, that familiar predatory smile spreading across her face. "Hello, Marcus," she said sweetly. "It's been too long." "Sophie's been telling me all about your history together," Enzo said, his hand possessively on her waist. "Small world, isn't it? Your ex-wife becoming part of the Bellini family." My team stood frozen around me. Everybody suddenly very interested in their champagne glasses. I forced a smile. "Congratulations to you both. We should have dinner sometime," Sophie said. "All of us like adults. I'd love to hear how the kids are doing." The way she said kids like she hadn't missed 8 years of birthdays and graduations made my jaw clench, but I kept my composure. My assistant, Janet, found me on the balcony later. "You okay, boss? That looked rough in there." "It's fine, Janet. If you say so, but be careful. That woman looked at you like a cat who just spotted a mouse." Janet didn't know how right she was. Over the next weeks, Sophie started appearing everywhere at work. She'd drop by to have lunch with Enzo, always stopping by my department. She'd attend meetings she had no business being in, sitting next to Enzo, whispering in his ear while looking at me. "Dad, something's wrong," Evan said during one of our dinners. "You look exhausted." "Just work stuff." Enzo's fiancée is Sophie. Noah dropped his fork. Mom is marrying your boss. It's fine. I just have to stay professional." "Dad, you need to document everything," Evan said in his lawyer voice. "This feels like trouble." My mother, Dorothy, would have seen it coming. She'd always been suspicious of people with too much charm and too little conscience. "Marcus, you're too trusting, just like your father was," she used to say. Robert saw the good in everyone, even when there wasn't any good to find. Mom had raised me alone after Dad died in that car accident when I was 2. She worked double shifts at Salem General for 30 years, putting me through school, never complaining. She died 3 years ago, peacefully in her sleep, leaving me a box of my father's things and a warning. The world isn't always fair, Marcus. But the truth has a way of finding daylight. Looking back now, I should have listened to Evan. I should have seen the trap Sophie and Enzo were setting, but I believed in the system, in hard work, in the idea that doing your job well was enough protection. I was wrong. The destruction of my life happened in exactly 72 hours, and it started with a phone call at 7:30 on a Monday morning. "Marcus, we need you in human resources immediately," the voice said. It was Carol Patterson, the HR director, and her tone made my coffee taste like ash. The walk to HR felt like a funeral march. Carol sat behind her desk with 2 security guards flanking the door. A stack of papers lay between us like an accusation. "There's been a serious allegation of theft," she said, sliding the documents toward me. $2 million of inventory is missing from Warehouse 7. The digital access logs show your override codes were used every single time. That's impossible. I haven't been in Warehouse 7 in 3 months. The records say otherwise. Every transaction has your digital signature. 47 separate diversions over the past 90 days. My hands shook as I reviewed the papers. There was my access code, my digital signature, even my supposed login times, all at hours when I was home asleep. This is fabricated. Check the security cameras. They'll show I wasn't there. Carol's expression didn't change. The cameras malfunctioned during all relevant time periods. The backup system also failed. Mr. Bellini wants this handled quietly. Resign now. Sign this non-disclosure agreement and there won't be criminal charges. Criminal charges for something I didn't do. I want my lawyer. That's your choice. But Mr. Bellini was hoping to avoid embarrassing your family. Your son Evan just made partner, didn't he? Be a shame if McKenna and Associates learned their newest partner's father was a thief. The threat was clear. I stood up. I'm not resigning for something I didn't do. Then you're suspended. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. The walk of shame through the office I'd helped build was the longest of my life. 42 faces of my team watching as security marched me out like a criminal. Janet was crying at her desk. Dennis from accounting wouldn't meet my eyes. Tuesday brought the police. 6 officers showed up at my door with a warrant, tearing through my house, confiscating my computers, my files, everything. Mrs. Henderson next door watched from her window as they let me out in handcuffs. Dad, what's happening? Noah sobbed over the phone from his dorm. It's a misunderstanding, sweetheart. Don't worry. But by Wednesday, it was clear this was no misunderstanding. Every major logistics company in the tri-state area had received an email from Bellini Industries about my integrity issues and ongoing investigation for corporate theft. My LinkedIn flooded with people distancing themselves. 23 years of relationships evaporated in 23 hours. The text from Sophie came Wednesday evening. Enjoy being nobody, Marcus. You always were too small for the life I wanted. Enzo sends his regards. I called Evan. I need a lawyer who isn't afraid of Enzo Bellini. Dad, I'll represent you myself. No, you just made partner. I won't let them destroy your career, too. The lawyer I hired cost $500 an hour. By week 3, my savings were hemorrhaging. By month 2, the house went into foreclosure. The legal bills had eaten everything and we were no closer to proving my innocence. Enzo Bellini had an army of attorneys and they buried us in paperwork. Marcus, I hate to say this, but they've done this before. My lawyer finally admitted. Enzo has a pattern. 3 other executives who crossed him ended up with similar accusations. None of them could prove their innocence. So, I'm just supposed to give up. I'm saying you're David fighting Goliath, except Goliath owns all the stones. I sold everything. The house, the car, my father's watch. Evan tried to give me money, but I refused. Noah offered to leave school and work, but I'd rather die than let him sacrifice his future for Enzo's lies. Luigi's Pizza was the only place that didn't run a background check. The owner, Luigi Morelli, was old school. You show up, you work hard, you get paid. I don't care what the papers say. Delivering pizzas at 50 was a special kind of humiliation. My first delivery was to someone from my old department. The second was to a neighbor. The third was to one of Sophie's friends who laughed when she saw me and tipped me a condescending 20. Marcus Hale. Dennis caught me one night at a red light pulling up beside my beat-up Civic with the Luigi sign on top. Man, I heard what Bellini did to you. Everyone knows it's bull, but nobody will cross him. He owns half the city. 3 months into this new life, I'd stopped fighting. Pride was a luxury I couldn't afford. I delivered pizzas, lived in a studio apartment that smelled like mildew, and avoided places where I might see people from my old life. The man who'd run demolition for a billion-dollar company now worried about gas money. That December night, driving through the rain to Beacon Hill, I thought I'd accepted my fate. I was nobody, just like Sophie said. I had no idea that in 10 minutes, Lucia Bellini would change everything. The order was for 1247 Beacon Hill Drive. A large pepperoni with extra cheese. Total $23.50 including delivery. The December rain hammered my windshield as I pulled up to the massive colonial house. These Beacon Hill deliveries usually meant good tips, sometimes enough to cover my gas for the entire night. I grabbed the insulated bag and ran through the downpour, my Luigi's jacket useless against the cold rain. When Lucia Bellini opened the door and fell to her knees, I thought she was having a heart attack. Then she spoke my father's name and my world tilted off its axis. Come in, please. You need to come inside, Lucia said, pulling me through the doorway with surprising strength. I've been searching for you for 30 years, Marcus. 30 years. Her living room looked like a museum dedicated to the past. Black and white photographs covered every surface. Documents and frames lined the walls, and boxes of papers sat stacked in corners. The pizza bag dropped from my numb fingers as Lucia grabbed a specific photograph from the mantel. This is your father and me. 1982, the day we incorporated Bellini Hale Developments. The 2 young men in the photo stood in front of a massive tract of swampland, hard hats in hand, grinning like they'd won the lottery. My father looked exactly like me at 25, down to the slight scar above his left eyebrow. Vittorio and I met at a construction site in Jersey, Lucia explained, his words tumbling out like a dam had burst. We were both foremen, both dreamers. We'd spend our lunch breaks talking about making it big, about building something that mattered. Then the riverside land came up for auction, 60 acres of swamp that nobody wanted. Lucia pulled out a yellow document, the incorporation papers for Bellini Hale Developments. Your father scraped together $50,000, his entire life savings plus a loan against your parents' house. I matched it. We were equal partners, 50/50ths. Everyone laughed at us. Who builds on swamp land 30 miles from the city? My mother never mentioned any of this, I said, my voice. Because we failed or thought we did. The city rejected our development permit 6 times. The environmental board said the land was protected wetlands. Your father was devastated. He'd risked everything. Mortgaged your family's future on a dream. 2 months later, he died in that car accident on Route 76, thinking he'd ruined your mother's life and yours before you were even born. Lucia's eyes filled with tears. I went to the funeral. Your mother was 8 months pregnant, completely broken. When I tried to explain about the company, she screamed at me to get out. Said she never wanted to hear about Vittorio's failed dreams again. She moved away right after you were born. I hired private investigators, but Dorothy covered her tracks well. He walked to a filing cabinet and pulled out folder after folder. 6 months after Vittorio died, everything changed. The state announced a new technology corridor initiative. Suddenly, our worthless swampland was prime real estate. The permits were approved overnight, but I couldn't find you or your mother to tell you. So, you developed it alone? I developed it for both of us. Every contract, every lease, every decision, I asked myself what Vittorio would want. I put his 50% in a trust, collecting rent, accumulating interest, waiting for the day I could find his son. Lucia showed me lease agreements, bank statements, 30 years of meticulous records. The numbers were staggering. 823 million, Lucia said. That's your father's share as of today, but Marcus, there's something more important than the money. She pulled out a specific lease agreement, and my blood froze. Enzo Bellini's signature stared back at me. Bellini Industries has been our anchor tenant for 15 years. Lot 47, the crown jewel of the corridor. His entire operation runs from that building. The lease comes up for renewal next month. You're telling me Enzo Bellini rents from us? From you now. And there's a morality clause I insisted on in every lease. Any tenant convicted of fraud, theft, or unethical business practices can be evicted with 30 days' notice. Your father wanted honest businesses on our land. I thought about Sophie's text, about being nobody, about my son crying on the phone, about my brother offering money he didn't have. About 3 months of delivering pizzas while Enzo Bellini sat in his office on my father's land, destroying lives for sport. Lucia, I said, my voice steady for the first time in months. I need you to introduce me to your lawyers, the best ones, you know. Already done, Patricia Norwood from Norwood, Kane and Associates. She's expecting your call. Marcus, your father would be so proud. You survived what would have broken most men. I haven't survived yet, I said. But Enzo Bellini is about to learn what it feels like when the ground shifts beneath your feet. The lawyers confirmed everything within a week. Patricia Norwood's team worked around the clock, verifying documents, establishing my inheritance, and most importantly, reviewing every single lease agreement on Bellini Hale property. The morality clause Lucia had insisted on was ironclad, written in language that even Enzo Bellini's army of lawyers couldn't dispute. Mr. Hale, Patricia said, adjusting her glasses as we sat in her downtown office. You don't just own the land under Bellini Industries. You own the leverage to destroy him completely. His entire operation depends on that location. The specialized manufacturing equipment alone would cost $50 million to relocate. How soon can we move? We already have. I filed the paperwork establishing your ownership and sent formal notice that you'll be personally reviewing all lease renewals. Mr. Bellini's attorneys have been calling nonstop. My phone buzzed. Sophie, I let it ring. The following morning, I sat in my Honda Civic outside Bellini Industries, holding the folder that contained Enzo's future. The building towered. Above me, 40 stories of glass and steel built on my father's dream. The security guard who used to wave me through now looked right through me, but that would change in about 30 minutes. My phone rang again. This time I answered, Marcus. Sophie's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. Enzo's freaking out about some lease issue. His lawyers are saying something about ownership changes. You wouldn't know anything about this, would you? Actually, I would, I said, watching Enzo's Bentley pull into his reserved spot. Tell Enzo his new landlord wants to discuss his recent business practices. The meeting is in 20 minutes. What are you talking about? Have you lost your mind? Oh, and Sophie, that boring man you left, he owns the ground your penthouse sits on. The one Enzo bought you last month. It's all built on Bellini Hale land. The silence was beautiful. Then came the shriek. That's impossible. You deliver pizzas. Not anymore. See you in the conference room. I walked through the lobby in my best suit, the one I'd saved from my old life. The receptionist looked confused until Patricia Norwood's team swept in behind me. 6 lawyers in perfect formation. We're here for the emergency meeting with Mr. Bellini, Patricia announced, conference room A, I believe. The elevator ride to the 40th floor felt like ascending to justice. When we entered the conference room, Enzo was already there with his legal team. 12 lawyers arranged like a defensive wall. Sophie sat beside him, her face pale under the fluorescent lights. Hello, Enzo, I said, taking the seat at the head of the table. Thank you for agreeing to meet with your landlord. Enzo's face went from confused to furious to terrified in 3 seconds. This is some kind of joke. Patricia slid the ownership documents across the table. No joke, Mr. Bellini. Mr. Hale inherited 50% of Bellini Hale developments from his father. As of last week, he's assumed full control of lease negotiations for Lot 47. You can't do this, Enzo snarled. We have a lease which expires in 30 days, I said calmly, and contains a comprehensive morality clause. Patricia, would you share what our investigators found? Patricia opened her laptop. 17 former employees have provided sworn affidavit about false accusations, planted evidence, and targeted harassment. We have 3 who were accused of theft using the exact same method used against Mr. Hale. Digital signatures, mysteriously malfunctioning cameras, the whole playbook. You can't prove anything. We don't have to. I said the morality clause doesn't require conviction, just credible evidence of unethical business practices. But here's my offer, Enzo. You have 2 choices. I stood looking down at the man who destroyed my life for sport. Option 1, you vacate the premises in 30 days. Move your entire operation elsewhere. Good luck finding 40 floors of specialized space with your infrastructure needs. Or his voice cracked. Option 2. You publicly clear my name, pay me $30 million in damages, and sign a lease at triple the current rate. Oh, and you divorce my ex-wife immediately. You can't force me to divorce her. Enzo slammed his fist on the table. No, but I can make staying married to her very expensive. Every month you remain married, the rent doubles. Month 1, $6 million. Month 22 million. Month 324 million. How long before your board decides she's not worth it? Sophie was standing now, her designer heels clicking as she backed toward the door. Marcus, baby, we can work this out. I never meant for things to go this far. Save it, I said, not even looking at her. Enzo, you have 24 hours to decide. After that, I start the eviction process and go public with everything. Enzo's lead attorney whispered urgently in his ear. The color drained from his face as he realized his empire stood on land. And I controlled. This is extortion. No, Patricia corrected. This is contract law. The same law you use to destroy innocent people. Mr. Hale is being generous. He could evict you today based on what we've documented. I turned to leave, then stopped. By the way, Enzo, that text Sophie sent about me being nobody, thank her for me. It's been very motivating. Enzo chose to fight. He lost spectacularly. Within 48 hours of our meeting, his board of directors called an emergency session. Patricia Norwood had made sure they received copies of every sworn affidavit, every piece of evidence, every documented case of Enzo's destruction of innocent employees. The city paper got an anonymous tip about the story, and suddenly Enzo Bellini wasn't the brilliant CEO anymore. He was the billionaire who destroyed working families for sport. Bellini Industries released a corporate statement, Mr. Bellini has decided to pursue other opportunities. But everyone knew the truth. The board gave him 2 options. Resign or be fired publicly. He chose to slink away with whatever dignity remained. The divorce papers were filed within a week. Turns out when you marry someone for money and the money disappears, so does the marriage. Sophie sent dozens of texts, each more desperate than the last. Marcus, please. I made a mistake. We were married for 22 years. Doesn't that count for something? I'm going to be homeless. Is that what you want? Please answer me. I know you're reading these. She even showed up at Luigi's one night. I still delivered pizza on Fridays, not because I needed the money, but because Luigi had given me dignity when the rest of the world had written me off. That man deserved my loyalty more than any corporate title ever could. Marcus, Sophie said, standing in the rain outside the restaurant, looking nothing like the woman who destroyed me 6 months ago. Please, just 5 minutes. Your order will be ready in 15 minutes, ma'am, I said, walking past her to my car. I'm sorry. Is that what you want to hear? I'm sorry for everything. I stopped and turned. No, Sophie. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry the money's gone. You're sorry you backed the wrong horse. That'll be $23.50 for the pizza. She threw the money at me and left. It was the last time I saw her. The 17 former employees Enzo had destroyed each received $2 million from the settlement fund we established. Dennis from accounting, who'd been forced out 3 years earlier on false charges, cried when he got the call. Marcus, you didn't just save yourself, you saved all of us. Lucia Bellini became the grandfather I never had. We spent evenings going through my father's old papers, learning about the man I'd never known. Vittorio Hale had been a dreamer, but more than that, he'd been a man who believed business should lift communities, not destroy them. Your father always said something, Lucia told me one evening as we watched the sunset over the technology corridor. He said, wealth without purpose is just paper, but wealth with purpose can change the world. We converted half of the corridor into affordable housing for displaced workers. The Marcus Hale Foundation launched with a $100 million endowment specifically to help families affected by corporate retaliation and false accusations. In the first year alone, we helped 300 families get back on their feet. Noah graduated debt-free and with honors. He now runs the medical clinic we built in North Philadelphia, providing free healthcare to families who can't afford insurance. Dad, he said at the ribbon cutting, you showed me that falling down doesn't define you. Getting up does. Evan started his own law firm, specializing in defending employees against corporate harassment. His first case was pro bono, defending a janitor accused of theft by his employer. We won. The janitor's daughter sent me a hand-drawn thank you card that sits on my desk next to my father's picture. My granddaughter Dorothy, Evan's newborn girl, will grow up in a world where her family name means something. Not because of money, but because when we got power, we used it to protect those who didn't have any. Standing in my father's old office, now mine, Lucia placed her hand on my shoulder. Vittorio would be proud, she said. You didn't just reclaim your wealth. You reclaimed your father's dream of using success to lift others. I looked at the photo of my father on the wall, that young man full of hope, standing in front of worthless swampland. He died thinking he was a failure, never knowing he'd built an empire. But more importantly, he'd built it with integrity, with clauses that demanded ethical behavior, with a vision that business should serve communities, not destroy them. The best revenge wasn't the money or the power. It wasn't watching Enzo lose everything or Sophie's desperate texts. The best revenge was the text I sent Sophie on what would have been her first wedding anniversary with Enzo. It was a photo of me handing keys to a young single mother, another victim of corporate retaliation, as she moved into her new apartment in our affordable housing complex. The message read, "This is what being somebody looks like." She never responded, but Marcus Hale's son didn't need her to. I'd learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes being nobody is just the universe's way of preparing you to become somebody who matters. And sometimes the ground beneath your feet isn't pulling you down. It's getting ready to lift you up. My father left me more than money. He left me purpose, and that's worth more than $823 million could ever be. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to remember that justice still exists in this world. Comment below if you've ever faced injustice and came out stronger. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories of ordinary people overcoming extraordinary odds. Remember, sometimes the biggest victories come after the deepest defeats.